How do you find property deals where you can literally double your money? And I'm not talking about just getting lucky every now and then. I'm talking about regularly finding deals where you can more than double your money. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 practical strategies which both myself and my students have used to more than double their money on property deals that they've found. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon. We put out new videos each and every week. You're going to be notified when we release those new videos. Now, if you're doubling your money in a property deal, you're literally achieving the holy grail of property investing. You're doing a deal where the outcome is that you have little or no money of your own tied up in the deal, but the deal is producing monthly positive rental cash flow. Now, the way you achieve that is simply by buying below market value and or adding value to that property. Now, if you're looking at 20 deals a month, say, you will statistically get lucky a certain amount of time and you will be doing deals like that. Now, all of us who have been in property for a certain amount of time do that and get lucky every now and then with these unicorn deals where you more than double your money. But the savvy property entrepreneur does things slightly differently. You see, most people in property play the Me Too game. They wait until people have done something or other and they think, oh, that's a good strategy, that's a good idea, let me copy and paste, I'll do that too. The savvy property entrepreneur stays ahead of the curve and benefits from first mover advantage. If you're taking first mover advantage, then basically the market doesn't really know and is not aware of what exactly it is that you're doing, which means that you can find a bargain and do something which will double your money. Over the last decade, there have been a whole bunch of new rules that are introduced, which basically allow you to do things without having to go through full planning permission. As well as new rules introduced, there are also tweaks to existing rules which allow further opportunities to be exploited. Now, here's what happens. A new rule is introduced which allows you to do something to a property. Now, most people aren't actually reading up on these changes and keeping abreast of what's going on in Parliament and what consultations the governments have issued and that kind of thing. Most people only know about something when they've seen someone else who's done it. And that means there's first mover advantage. Now, I first got into this back in 2013. In 2013, they introduced the first permitted development rights, which allowed commercial buildings to be converted to residential use. In particular, shops, the space above shops to be converted into 2 flats, and also office buildings to be converted into multiple flats as well. Now, I did my first commercial to residential conversion deals just a few months after those new rules came into force. And here's what I found. What I found was that people who owned these properties that could be converted didn't know about the potential. So they weren't valuing that into their asking price. Now, if I've got a 3-bedroom end of terraced house, everyone knows what you can do to that house. You can add a little side extension, you can extend out the back, perhaps do a loft conversion. But at that time, if you have a commercial building such as an office block, people are valuing it. Estate agents, auctioneers, everyone is valuing it and seeing it as what it is. They're not aware that these new rules have come in which allow you to literally change their use to residential and thereby significantly uplift the value. So what I find is in the first year of a new rule being introduced, there is first mover advantage. And that comes from 2 things, actually. Firstly, it comes from the market not being fully aware of how these rules can actually be exploited. Remember, when the government passes a new law, it is gobbledygook. When you actually read the act, it is quite hard to make sense of what it actually means to you and what you can do with it, and the nuances of what you can do with it. So it takes a little bit of digesting and interpretation to figure out how you can maximize the exploitation of a new rule when it comes out. So there's that first year where there is golden opportunity and it's an open goal. The other thing to remember about permitted development rights is that the local authorities don't want this at all, and they want to oppose it. And when a new rule comes in, it takes them time to figure out how they can throw spanners in the works and try to block it delay it or oppose it in some way. So in that first year, it is real first mover advantage because the market isn't fully aware of what you can do with these rules, and the planners aren't sure of all the possible nuances in ways in which they can block or delay things or throw spanners in the works. So you tend to have an easy ride. If you're liking this content, make sure you smash that like button. It helps us out on YouTube. If you've benefited from permitted development rules and new rules coming in or tweaks to existing rules, then let us know in the comments below. Now, there are multiple different strategies for taking advantage of this sort of thing, new rule changes and all of that. And we have a playbook of more than 21 of these different strategies that you can deploy. But in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 of them, which you can actually start looking for deals which fit this template right now. Now, the first is to keep an eye on Article 4 areas. Now, let me just explain what exactly an Article 4 area is. Now, permitted development rights are introduced by central government, and obviously the local councils often don't like them, and they sometimes go through a process to basically oppose permitted development rights being implemented in their local authority or parts of their local authority, and they seek an Article 4 order. Now, the council has to apply for an Article 4 order for each permitted development right it wants to be exempted from, and designate a specific geographical area where those exemptions apply. Now, the thing is, when the central government awards a local authority an Article 4, then the council has to put the public on 1 year's notice of it coming into effect. So that means you have 1 year. And this is very, very powerful, because what tends to happen is that the council, as soon as they get given an Article 4 by central government, they put out all the marketing and in all the local newspapers and their website and all of that. They say, we've got an Article 4, you can't do this and that in our town, and they put out that message in the hope that people will see that message and say, okay, nothing to see here, no deals in this area. But that's not the case. You need to look at the Article 4 order itself, and you can find that on a council website. I've got an example of one here from Hackney, and you can see what it kind of looks like, but it actually says clearly the date when that order comes into force. So as I said, when they get granted an Article 4 exemption, they have to put the public on 1 year's notice before it comes into effect. Now, the thing is, a lot of people in the area assume that just because they've been given it, it applies straight away. But it doesn't apply from the date that they get the Article 4. Are you struggling to find your next commercial to residential conversion project? Well, over the next 2 years, virtually every UK bank branch will close. Banks are fabulous buildings in prime locations, and thanks to permitted development rights, they're really easy to convert to alternative uses under a light touch planning regime. My team have put together a list of over 500 UK bank branches which are poised for imminent closure. And for a limited period only, you can download this list absolutely free. Your next commercial property project is on this list, so download it now and enjoy the rest of the video. Now, I've got this video here, which is a case study from one of my students who bought a shop in Richmond in London where they converted the rear of the shop into a flat. And you can have a look at that case study on that video up there. Now, Richmond had applied for and got an Article 4 exemption, and it was coming into force in 1 year's time. Now, they bought and secured a property before the Article 4 came into force, after it was announced, but before it actually came into force. And more importantly, they got the permission for change of use before the Article 4 came into force. And that is the very powerful thing. So what they have done is they've actually got into an area. Most people thought, hey, there's an Article 4, nothing to see here, you can't do anything with these properties. But no, the Article 4 was announced but hadn't yet come into force. And more importantly, they got the permitted development permission granted and stamped before it came into force. So that means that they had 3 years subsequently to actually implement that permission. So one of the great things about that particular property deal is no one else in that area can do that deal. They've got in before the Article 4 came into force. So always have a look at that. Now the other tip is to look at what the Article 4 actually relates to. So some people think, there is a blanket ban on commercial to residential conversions. What you've got to do is go back to the Article 4 and see specifically what it relates to. So here's a typical Article 4 here. It says, oh dear, in this part of Hackney you can't convert Class E commercial buildings into residential use. Well, or does it? What it actually says is you can't take a commercial building and apply Class MA to it to convert it to residential use. Class MA is for converting basically any building in usage class, commercial usage class E to residential use. But what it doesn't exclude you or preclude you from doing is taking commercial buildings of Class E usage and using Class G permitted development right to make 2 flats above it. Now that's very, very important, because a lot of people will be looking at this particular area and thinking, oh, I can't do any commercial to residential conversion. No. What that means is you can't take a Class E building and apply Class MA permitted development right to it. But there is no Article 4 that prevents you from using Class G permitted development right. So Class G, of course, has its limitations. What that means is you can take a building which has, say, a shop on the ground floor and convert the upper floors into 2 flats. And I see people time and time again in Article 4 areas where Class MA is restricted just completely ignore the fact that they're free to go and Class G permitted development right is a complete open goal. Third tip is to keep an eye out on what is happening and what is about to happen. And 2024 is going to be a massive year for permitted development rights. New permitted development rights and tweaks to existing permitted development rights. I talked about Class G permitted development right, for example. There's going to be some changes which have been announced for consultation later on this year, where they're going to tweak Class G, which will, instead of allowing you just to do 2 flats above a shop, will allow you to do 4 flats above a shop. So what you need to be doing is being ahead of the curve and start looking at deals and properties and sites where you can implement these new PD rights and be ahead of the curve. Now, in January 2024, the government are going to announce a consultation process on a new permitted development right, which will allow houses to be converted from 1 house into two dwellings. Now that is going to be massive, because although we have had in the past permitted development rights to allow commercial buildings to be converted to residential use, we have never ever had a permitted development right which allows a residential dwelling to be converted into 2 or more residential dwellings. So this is going to be massive. Now the thing is, I think there'll be a lot of naysayers with this particular permitted development right, and when the government actually issue the consultation process, I'm sure a lot of NIMBYs will be putting in their 2 pennies worth objecting to it. And that's why I want you to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon, because I'm going to keep you up to date with this consultation process, and I'm going to be encouraging all of you to actually contribute to this consultation process and putting in your 2 pennies worth into why it's a good idea. Now, what's happened in previous years when they've done consultation processes in January? They do a January consultation process and they actually announce the permitted development right in the March budget. So this is happening real soon, folks. And that means today you can start looking for properties which are ripe for converting into 2 flats under that permitted development right. So remember, when you create a new dwelling, each new dwelling needs to be at least 37 square meters in size. And you won't be able to change the external envelope, the external appearance of the property. You'll be able to do it in conservation areas, probably not on listed buildings, but as long as you don't change the exterior of the property, and you have got enough internal space to have 37 square meters for each of the 2 flats, then you're good to go. So what you can be doing right now is staying ahead of the curve and finding deals which will meet that template, so you can benefit from this PD right as soon as it comes into force, which is likely to be in March this year. So to sum up, if you want to do deals where you can literally double your money, do property deals where you have virtually none of your money invested in the deal, you're really doing BRRRR, B-R-R-R, to the letter, then the surefire way of doing that is to stay ahead of the curve on new rules which allow things to be done under permitted development. This year, 2024, is going to be massive for new permitted development rights, and you need to be ahead of the curve if you want to make maximum profits in this market. We're going to be keeping you up to date with all those changes, so make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon, we'll keep you notified. Let me know how you've benefited from permitted development rights in the comments below, and don't go away without smashing that like button. See you guys in the next video. The Baker Street Property Meet is the UK's largest and #1 property investors networking event. The property market is going through monumental change right now, and at Baker Street Property Meet we aim to keep you up to date with the latest tips and tricks and insider tactics to help you keep on top of your property investing game and succeed in these troubled economic times. The Baker Street Property Meet is fundamentally about networking, because it's not what you know, it's who you know. And at Baker Street we aim to connect you with the people to make your property journey a monumental success. There's no better place to be to further your property investment journey than the Baker Street Property Meet. So make sure you're here, you're connecting with myself and Andrew Roberts, our expert guest speakers, and 300 passionate property people each and every month. See you at the next meet. Get your spot at bakerstreetpropertymeet.com.